Hi everyone, my name is Danelle and my project is on how does social media impact fitness and diet. So, starting off with the topic importance, I solidified that into rise in social media influencers, accessibility of information via TikTok and Instagram and other social media platforms, misinformation and differentiating relevant information from non relevant information, and then the pros and cons of social media impact on the younger generation. So, to start off, in recent times, social media influencers have been using their platforms to engage content and tips regarding various exercise routines, meal prepping, at home workouts, etc., which ties into how readily available this information is. Every person's social media is curated to how they interact, but there are thousands of videos online, which suggests protein rich meals or how to be in a calorie deficit, or even videos from female influencers, which have tips of them sharing things they wish they knew before they started exercising, before they started going to the gym, or on diets. The downside to this information being readily available and provided by so many people is that it may be hard to determine what's relevant individually and also what's in misinformation because these people aren't experts, they're not dietitians, so a lot of them are just sharing what's worked for them in the past or present, and it's not necessarily generalizable to the general population. And then we can also weigh the pros and cons of this content and the information it has on the younger generation, especially Gen Z and Gen Alpha. So this topic falls under the subfield of health psychology, since a lot of its concepts and the phenomenon of social psychology can be applied and studied as well. My sophomore year, I took this course with Dr. Fixlin, and when I was thinking of interesting topics, this one struck with me, which is where my interest in this topic came from. What's most important to me is also seeing how this affects self-esteem in these groups, particularly dissatisfaction, which is what I'm going to focus on in my paper and my project. And then lastly, I wanted to be more conscious overall of the effects of the content on social media, not only on myself, but those around me. So, my literature review, I'm covering three of the articles that I read in this presentation. The first one analyzed what you eat in a day content from 2015 to 2016, and then the other time period was 2021 to 2022. There were themes of calorie counting, weight tracking, and limitations in diet, such as not eating sugars or fats, found in a lot of the videos that were gathered in the analysis. And influencers mentioned mood improvement, less bloating, improved muscle, and a variety of physical and psychological outcomes as a result of their diets. Because of weight normativity being promoted and the content being influenced by sponsorships, we can see the concern of misinformation being addressed here and the emphasis on physical improvement without addressing mental benefits. It's also adding to societal pressures and expectations faced by a younger generation, considering all this content reinforces those ideas and provides more evidence supporting it. The second article compiled Thinspo and Fitspo's posts and coded them for mental disorders, body and fat shaming, comparison, and also thin praise. The Fitspo post had more themes of objectification or sexualization and physical improvement, while the Thinspo was more focused on restrictive eating and shame. The food content was surprisingly not prevalent on Twitter in this article and in the content that they compiled, but it also showed that there's a lot of unhealthy info being presented under the guise of health and fitness. And then my last article focused on 250 TikTok videos with the hashtag healthy lifestyle. Like the other articles, we can see there were good intentions behind the content, but there's still harmful messaging. So the literature that I was able to compile and analyze really built into my research topic and where I wanted to move forward with my project. For my translational assignment, I wanted to do a children's article. children aren't necessarily the intended audience, but they are also affected because parents tend to not monitor their social media or the apps they're using. And even then, sometimes there are limited restrictions and things obviously still don't get filtered out. I personally have an interest in working with adolescents in the future, and then these are prevalent issues in this age group, especially because a lot of them are exposed to social media much earlier than they should be. Um, so a lot of these topics are covered in public school, um, during like gym classes or health classes, but I feel like talking about the harmful side of fitness culture is very important and it can definitely be acknowledged with preteens, teens, and some of the older children just so they're aware of the impact. For this project, I'll say my first challenge was ensuring that my topic was specific enough. So narrowing it down to fitness and diet rather than just broadly talking about different types of health behavior when it comes to social media affecting that. I didn't want to spend time looking for articles or writing about something that didn't speak to the part of psychology that I enjoyed. So that's why I started looking under self psychology. And then this particular topic drew my attention, so I landed on this one. For my translational project, I knew that I wanted to be more creative rather than practical. And while the children's book slash article is practical, I know that I could find a creative way to convey the information, make it visually interesting, and also make the topics a little bit more understandable for that younger audience. And then lastly, for this project, I took a more structured approach than I usually do by gathering all my sources and formatting my essay before I actually started it. Usually, I would gather some sources and start writing and then modify as I go on, adding sources and kind of hopping around the essay. But as I was working towards my final draft, I realized that I could change my approach and just plan it all out in the beginning, and it did work in my favor. And then I have my references, and that's all I have. Thank you for listening.